Good morning, fabulous fourth grade. Today is April 20th, 2020, and it is a magnificent Monday. Today, we are going to continue with our online learning in our virtual classroom. I'm going to share the screen. Again, good morning, fabulous fourth grade. Today, we're going to learn about biodiversity. All right. So, our learning goal, my turn and your turn. I can identify the components of an ecosystem and identify and explain each level of an energy pyramid. Again, our learning goal, I can identify the components of an ecosystem and identify and explain each level of an energy pyramid. So what is diversity? Biodiversity. It is the variety of life in the world or in a particular habitat or ecosystem. An ecosystem is all of the living and non-living parts of an environment. An environment is all of the living and non-living things around an organism. More than one of the same type of organism is a population. Okay? So population would be more than one of the same type of organism. So here we have deer. A community would be two populations, and the ecosystem would be all of the living populations and the non-living and the tongues of the living. And so in the ecosystem, you have to have a diverse community of organisms. You need to have living and non-living things so that they can all thrive. So plants make their own energy source, glucose, through photosynthesis. We talked about this last week. But what about animals? How do animals get energy? Well, that is our essential question. How do animals get energy? And we're going to conduct that investigation in using our resources in Google Classroom. So again, last week we talked about photosynthesis. We talked about the plants needing three things in order to make their own food. One of those things was water. One was sunlight. And what was the third? If you said carbon dioxide, you're correct. So they needed water, they needed sunlight, and they need carbon dioxide in order to undergo photosynthesis. All of those three things the plants need. The sunlight was captured through a certain organelle. It was the chloroplast. If you said chloroplast, great job, you're correct. And after the plant undergoes the process of photosynthesis, the two byproducts, meaning the two things that were made at the end, are the glucose, and the other was, if you said oxygen, you're awesome. All right, so today we're going to investigate how animals make their own energy, how animals get energy. So you'll go to your particular class and you'll go to the classwork tab. From the classwork tab, look for today's topic, biodiversity. And then under biodiversity, you will see today's date. It is the same in Chicago State University. Classwork tab, biodiversity, today's date. And it is also the same in Notre Dame. Classwork tab, biodiversity, and today's date. So I'm going to click today's date, and after you click today's date, you'll see a snapshot of today's assignments. You're going to click view the assignment. If not, if the instructions don't automatically pop up, go to the instructions tab. The first thing that we have to do is study our FAB vocab. So we'll study our FAB vocab. This week's vocab is going to be ecosystems week 1. And next week's vocab will be ecosystems week 2. All right, so Ms. Davis has talked about ecosystem. What is an ecosystem? Well, an ecosystem is the living and non-living parts of the environment in a specific area. Ecosystems can be really, really small, or they can be really, really large. Ecosystem can be what's inside of your fish bowl or your fish tank, and that's kind of small. An ecosystem can actually be a puddle of water outside. And an ecosystem also can be the ocean, or an ecosystem can be Memphis, Tennessee. So an ecosystem is not just limited to the desert or to the tundra. An ecosystem can be as small as a dot of water, right? And then here's an image of an ecosystem and the different habitats. All right, our next term, my turn, your turn, environment, environment. So an environment is everything, all the living and non-living things that surround just an organism. So when Ms. Davis showed you that deer, the environment would be maybe the water. It would be the water. It would be the fish, the dragonflies, the plants. It would be everything that is living and everything that is not living. See, this log is cut, so technically it's no longer alive. These plants in the water, they're living. The sunlight is not living. However, all of this is part of the animals or the organism's environment. So a producer is an organism that makes its own food through photosynthesis. We talked about plants being producers all last week, and we determined that the plants, not just the trees and not just the grass, but cactus and flowers and even lily pads are all plants, and they undergo photosynthesis. All right. The next term is photosynthesis. And we just said it's the process by which plants make food. It's a process by plants and other autotrophs to capture light, sunlight energy, and to use the power chemical reactions that convert carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and energy-rich carbohydrates such as sugars and starches, so glucose. Right? A consumer. A consumer is an organism that must eat or consume plants or animals for food. So these are the different trophic levels of consumers, and the bottom is the producer. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. The next is an herbivore. My turn, herbivore, your turn. So an herbivore is an organism that only eats plants. And so cows are herbivores, sheep herbivores, rabbits are herbivores, mice are herbivores. It only eats plants. The next one is an omnivore. Omnivore. So an omnivore is an organism that eats both plants and animals. That would be a bear. Bears eat berries, but bears also like salmon. They also like fish. Birds can eat berries and nuts, but they also like worms. All right. And my favorite omnivore is us. So we are omnivores. We eat plants, but we also eat animals. Carnivore. So a carnivore is an organism that only eats meat, which is other animals. An example would be a cat. An example would be a lion, spiders, fish. All right, let's go on. Decomposer. So a decomposer breaks down dead plants and animals, and then this returns the nutrients to the soil. So it breaks down dead and decaying matter, and it returns to the soil as nutrients for other plants to absorb through their, you said it, roots. Habitat. And habitat is an environment that provides the things a specific organism needs to live, grow, and reproduce. habitat. Food chain. So a food chain is a community of organisms where each member is eaten in turn by another member. So you have the producers that are consuming the sunlight or taking in the sunlight through their chlorophyll. You have the deer that eats the grass, and then you have the wolf that eats the deer. And then a food web. A food web is a community of organisms where there are several interrelated food chains. So this was a food chain, and then this is a food web. So the food web shows all of the producers being consumed by an herbivore, and then the herbivores being consumed by a carnivore. And we'll talk more about that with Ecosystems Week 2. All right, so once you have finished going over your vocabulary words at least how many times? 2 times, you know it. Then Ms. Davis wants you to go to the match game and just to see how well you retained the information. All right, let's go. Community of organisms. Ooh, that's a food chain. No, that's a food web. That's a food web. That's a food web. I don't see it. It's behind something. All right, an organism that eats both plants and animals is an omnivore. The living and non-living parts of oh, there's food web, okay. And ecosystem, a community of organisms. Oh, that's a food chain. And then an organism must eat, that's a consumer, and obviously habitat. So my best score was 39. My best score was 39, and we're gonna move forward. Ms. Davis has already played it. So I want you to again play the game twice, and then after you play the game twice, go back to Google Classroom. So we're gonna close that out, and we're gonna go back to Google Classroom. We have a YouTube video that Ms. Davis wants you to watch, and it just talks about why biodiversity is so important. Again, we wanna identify, here's our question, our guiding question, how do animals get energy? That's what we're thinking about, all right? So the video that we're going to watch is why is biodiversity so important? And then you have a thinking question that you're going to answer after watching the video.
Our planet's diverse, thriving ecosystems may seem like permanent fixtures, but they're actually vulnerable to collapse. Jungles can become deserts, and reefs can become lifeless rocks, even without cataclysmic events like volcanoes and asteroids. What makes one ecosystem strong and another weak in the face of change? The answer, to a large extent, is biodiversity. Biodiversity is built out of 3 interconnected features: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. The more intertwining there is between these features, the denser and more resilient the root becomes. Take the Amazon rainforest, one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth, due to its complex ecosystems, huge mix of species, and the genetic variety within those species. Here are tangled blue nanopines, which crawl up from the forest floor to the canopy, intertwining with treetops and growing thick wooded stems that support these towering trees. Out below are the vines. Trees provide the seeds, fruits, and leaves to herbivores such as the deer and the agouti, which disperse their seeds throughout the forest so they can grow. Leftovers are consumed by the millions of insects that decompose and recycle nutrients to create rich soil. The rainforest is a huge system filled with many smaller systems like this, each packed with interconnected species. Every link provides stability to the next, strengthening biodiversity's weave. That weave is further reinforced by the genetic diversity within individual species, which allows them to cope with crises. Species that lack genetic diversity due to isolation or low population numbers are much more vulnerable to fluctuations caused by climate change, disease, or habitat fragmentation. Whenever a species disappears, So, what if we were to remove one species from the rainforest? Would the system fall apart? Probably not. The volume of species, or genetic diversity, and the complexity of the ecosystems form such rich biodiversity in this forest that one species gap in the weed won't cause it to unravel. The forest can be but that's not true in every case. In some environments, taking away just one important component can undermine the entire system. Take coral reefs, for instance. Many organisms in a reef are dependent on the coral. It provides habitats, shelter, breeding grounds for thousands of species of fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. Corals also form interconnected relationships with fungi and bacteria. The coral itself is a glue that allows the tiny net of biology to be woven. That makes it a keystone organism, one that many others depend on for their survival. So what happens when destructive fishing practices, pollution, and ocean acidification weaken coral or even kill it altogether? Exactly as you might think, the loss of this keystone species leaves its dependents at a loss too, threatening the entire fabric of the reef. Ecosystem, species, and genetic diversity together form a complex tangle of biodiversity that is vital for the survival of organisms on Earth. We humans are woven into this biodiversity too. When just a few strands are left, our own well-being is threatened. Cut too many links, and we risk unraveling it all. What the future brings is unpredictable, but biodiversity can give us an insurance policy, Earth's own safety net, to safeguard our survival.
Yeah. All right, scholars. So I'm going to leave this video in here. And then after you watch the video, you have a thinking question. So your thinking question is really just based off of the video. All you're telling me is, what is biodiversity and why is it important? So you may have to watch the video one more time to answer that thinking question. But the question is, what is biodiversity and why is it important? So after you answer the question, right here where you see the share button, at here is going to be a turn in button. So you'll turn in, you'll answer your question right here in the document, and then you will click share, okay? All right, and so then once you're finished with that, I want you to come back in and I want you to click the Legends of Learning. So you have a biodiversity playlist. You'll log in using student and teacher login up here at the top. I already have you in, so you do not have to create an account. You'll click Student Play Now. From there, you'll play Teachers Playlist. My code is Davis TN, Davis T, my apologies, Davis T217. All right, and then from there, you're going to log in because you already have an account. You log in with your Google account. I'm going to use Kenneth. And so you'll scroll down. So this is The Awakening. That was the animal structures and the scientific method from a couple weeks ago. You'll scroll down and you'll click the assignment, energy transfer and ecosystems. You have any questions about it, just message me. It's not a game that you just finish quickly. It is a game that's going to take time because you're literally building an ecosystem and you have to look at your numbers and you have to introduce decomposers, you have to introduce producers, and we'll talk more about those later. I'm not going to load the game. I'm going to allow you to play it on your own. So then after you finish that, go back to your vocabulary, fab vocabulary, and practice more on those. If you have any questions, please message me under the assignment feed here. So message me here. All right, message me here. And if you want to, you can also message me on Dojo. So let's do a recap. Study your fab vocab 2 times and then play the matching game. Try to beat your best score. Watch the YouTube video. As you watch the YouTube video, have the thinking question in your mind. What is biodiversity and why is it important? Make sure you answer the question and then touch turn in. Once you are finished watching the video and answering the question, you can go to Legends of Learning and you can play the ecosystem game. Right? That is all for today. If you have any questions, remember your teachers are available from 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock. You can send us an email. You can message us on Dojo, or you can even send me a message in Google Classroom. All right. May the force be with you. Have a great day. Promise.